Next, Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy battle it out as opposing trial lawyers in the George Cukor comedy, Adam's Rib.
Flash priority. Washington, please stand by.
A team of Navy commandos is missing.
A rescue attempt is simply not justifiable.
When the government wouldn't help, their kids became their only hope.
Look, maybe they've written my father off, but I haven't.
Wait, you mean we go get them?
Yeah, that's crazy.
I love it.
They're against all odds.
The only thing that we can hope for is that we find those children before they cross over into the north.
Real bullets!
They don't stand a chance.
But they won't give up.
We go all the way. The plan, the commitment, all of it.
I don't think these are the right guys.
I can't believe that you have done this.
Kevin Dillon, Mark Price, and Edward Albert star in an adventure
Are you serious?
they will never forget. The Rescue. Now, a behind-the-scenes look at a very special Walt Disney picture. The heartwarming tale of the journey of Natty Gann. This month, Disney captured the true American spirit with its presentation of the journey of Natty Gann. A sensitive portrayal of the undying love between a daughter and father, torn apart by the grip of the Great Depression. It took 1 year for producer Michael O'Bell to cast the all-important leading role.
We really were looking for somebody who had the vulnerability that a young girl put in this situation, this fish totally out of water. A Chicago kid who is thrust out into nature, a place where she's never been.
Meredith Salinger, a bright young talent, rose above the competition to land the role of Natty Gann, a courageous tomboy who travels cross-country in search of her father. Over 2,000 actresses were auditioned in a nationwide effort to find the right girl for the demanding part. The challenges of starring in a motion picture led Meredith on a course of personal discovery.
I became more professional, I think. You know, I thought, just like everyone else, oh my God, a movie star, you know? I never thought it was so hard. I didn't think it was going to be hard work. I just thought, you know, memorize your lines. And I learned it was a lot different.
In performing the role of a teenager in the 1930s, Meredith relied on director Jeremy Kagan's valuable insight into a time gone by.
That was a swell idea. He tells you to think about the character, what you would do, and if you were really hurt. He's very good. He makes everything seem so much easier. But he talks you through it. So if you really don't know what you're doing, he can help, you know.
It takes a strong story and believable characters to create an illusion. And for audiences everywhere, Disney brings illusion to life.
The whole point of a picture, I think, is to take people into experiences and places they haven't been, or times they haven't been. And at least in this case, we're going to a time that most of us really haven't been in, which is the Depression in America.
Presented exclusively on the Disney Channel, a true-to-life American adventure, produced in the Disney tradition of quality unexcelled. The Journey of Natty Gann. Charlie is going home to Ireland. Home to face the childhood he'd long since forgotten.
You destroyed me, you know that.
Home to face the father he never really knew.
I'll never forgive you for this.
Ah, you win.
Never.
The man he called Da.
I wish I was a fly in your head the way you're a wasp inside of mine.
Martin Sheen and Bernard Hughes recreating his Tony Award-winning role in the U.S. television premiere of Da. The Sunday Night Showcase presents comedy legend, Mr. Bob Hope. Bob shares Hollywood secrets.
I've kissed a lot of girls. Trigger's the only one that kissed back.
Declines public office.
The money's not good, honey. And besides, my wife wouldn't want to move to a smaller house, you know.
And more in a conversation with Bob Hope.
years, since the time of the saber-toothed tiger, the wild cats, both great and small, have stalked the earth searching for their prey. Today, the so-called king of this family is the African lion, a proud monarch whose royalty dates back to biblical times. However, in Asia, his title is disputed by the tiger, a cat that equals the lion in size and possibly excels him in grace and beauty. The jaguar is the largest cat inhabiting the rainforests of South America. Here he is the king. King of the North American cat family is the cougar, an animal of tremendous strength and agility. Of course, he has many smaller cousins. One of them is the Canadian lynx, a dweller of the deep northern woods. He is prized by fur trappers. The ocelot inhabits the dry desert areas of southern Texas. He also lives throughout most of Mexico, Central and South America. The bobcat, who is equally at home in forest or desert, is so named because of his bob tail. All members of the cat family share certain physical characteristics, and the rhythm and grace of their walk is one example. Virtually all are armed with claws that can be extended and retracted into sheaths atop the toes when not in use. The wildcats keep their weapons sharp at all times. Typical of all cats is their extreme quickness, as shown by this bobcat in a showdown with a group of razorback hogs. Almost all of the cats have 30 teeth, including 4 long canines in front. All cats have the reputation of being able to see in the dark, and it's nearly true. In the daytime, the pupils of their eyes are only narrow slits. But in the dark, the pupils expand many times so as to admit the tiniest ray of light. This highly magnified picture of the tongue shows spike-like projections called papillae, which cover its entire surface. These papillae give the tongue a file-like roughness, which enables the cat to lick the last shred of meat from a bone. All cats are extremely clean animals as well. Much time is spent licking the paws and then using a damp paw like a washcloth. If you remove their skins, the skeletons of all cats are virtually identical, except for size. Color of fur and hunting habits are the main things that set one member of the cat family apart from his relatives. For some 4,000 years, the domestic cat has shared man's comforts and habitat. But for his wild cousins, nature must provide, and habitats vary widely. The ocelot finds comfort and protection in a natural cave. The bobcat usually prefers woodlands where he can find a plentiful supply of small game. However, he also inhabits swamplands and dry desert areas. A century ago, when most of America was still covered by timber and farmlands, the cougar was found nearly everywhere. But today, with few exceptions, the presence of man has driven the big cats into the high mountains of the West. Here, among the rugged peaks and quiet forests, the cougar still reigns supreme, just as his ancestors did before him. In the days of the American pioneers, he was called by many other names: puma, catamount, panther, mountain lion, and king cat. The most common, though, is cougar. The cougar, like all cats, is strictly a carnivore, that is, a flesh eater. most common food has always been the deer. But a cougar will also track down the bighorn sheep of the Rocky Mountains. Or he will follow a herd of elk waiting for his chance to pick off a cripple or young calf. The cougar will occasionally prey upon some of the smaller woodland creatures, including the raccoon. Although most of us think of cats as not liking water, a cougar will use his claws for fish hooks. And when a fat salmon is the prize, he doesn't hesitate to wade right in and go fishing. The cougar's normal hunting range covers many square miles, and in the winter, when food grows scarce, he is forced to travel even further. At a time like this, even a beaver looks quite appetizing. Porcupine, with his defensive armor of some 30,000 sharp quills, is an animal the cougar will only attack in desperation. Another is the skunk. Because of his great size, the cougar has few natural enemies, but one that can give him trouble is the bear. Generally, they stay well clear of each other. But here, behind the protection of a barbed wire fence, lives the cougar's most dangerous enemy, man. Sometimes, because of scarcity of his natural prey, the cat is forced to risk everything and descend into this world of human beings. This particular cat was lucky to get away. Many do not. Although it's true that the cougar occasionally destroys some livestock, it must be said that he also does a great deal of good when left alone in his natural environment. As he can seldom catch a healthy animal, and he knows it, he tends to rid the deer and elk herds of the old, the sick, and the crippled. In this way, the cougar plays his part in nature's plan, that only the strongest shall survive. Struggle for survival, the cougar, like all the other forest creatures, is guided by instinct. And each year, usually in the winter, he goes in search of a mate. Thus, the age-old cycle of reproduction is continued. The gestation period of 13 weeks, kittens are born, and the usual number in a litter is 2. With With their soft yellow-brown hair and black spots, the young kits have a slight resemblance to leopard cubs. The spots are camouflage that make it difficult to recognize them from a distance. At this tender age, they haven't a care in the world and spend many hours playing and wrestling. This seemingly carefree play has a purpose. The kittens are learning to stalk and attack, skills they will use throughout their lives as hunters in the forest. The health of her youngsters depends upon an ever-ready supply of milk, and to produce it, the mother must have a steady diet of fresh meat. With amazing agility for an animal that sometimes weighs over 200 pounds, she climbs a tree to survey her domain for a likely meal. The cougar usually catches prey by stalking and leaping, and rarely has to resort to an extended run such as this. The supple grace of the cougar in action is one of the marvels of nature. A full-grown deer can mean a supply of food for mother and kittens for many days. And the cat will not hunt again until this supply is exhausted. When the kits are 6 or 7 weeks old, their mother will begin gradually introducing them to the taste of fresh meat. Thus, the process of weaning begins. Like all members of the cat family, the female cougar is completely devoted to her young. She fondles and guards them continually. The first stirrings of independence come early to the cougar kittens. Often they'll decide to take off on their own for a little exploration. It's a big, wide world out there, and a fella can't get started soon enough if he's really going to see it. As usual, mother comes to the rescue and there's no harm done. 6 months later, their dark spots, no longer needed, have faded away and they look very much like their mother. The young cougars are now teenagers. At this age, they learn a lesson almost every time they try to catch an animal they're not familiar with. Among their discoveries is a creature that makes a strange noise and jumps into the air whenever you try to lay a paw on him. He even goes so far as to jump into the water. But the lesson is learned. When hunting for a meal, he who hesitates goes hungry. A few months later, the young cougars, full of excitement, race through the forest, testing their speed and stamina against each other. Big and powerful as he is, he soon discovers that size and strength alone are not enough, particularly when going after a pine squirrel, who can easily outmaneuver him in the treetops. Even in their own element, the young cougars are not always successful in their efforts to satisfy their hunger. Youth and brawn lose out to this simple rodent, who knows better than to stray more than a few feet from the safety of his nearby burrow. At about 2 years, the young cougars are mature enough to leave the den and stake out claims on their own territories. And so the age-old cycle renews itself again. Soon the young cats will find mates and start families of their own. Yes, nature, with its infinite wisdom, has given the cougar the adaptability to survive. And in the far reaches of America's western mountains, the cougar is still king.
Next, he was a cowboy turned comedian turned philosopher. The Achievers takes an intimate look at Will Rogers. On tonight's chapter of Great Expectations,
I feel I'm being watched at every step.
Magwitch's past becomes his adversary.
If they catch me here, it's the rope for certain.
Driven by fear, they make plans for a better world.
What do you think, Mr. Magwitch?
I'll wait content, knowing that you and me will make the run together.
Leaving his dream behind, Pip risks it all in a daring run for freedom.
Row, Albert, row!
Don't miss the exciting conclusion of Great Expectations. The year is 1992, and the Disney Channel is dedicating Tuesday nights to the spirit of our nation's people. Join us as we salute the American legacy. This month, more movies and specials that celebrate the standards upon which our country was built.
Our love of challenge.
185-pound cowboy against a 1,500-pound bull. It's kind of what America stands for, strength itself.
The Academy Award-winning documentary, The Great American Cowboy.
Our reverence for nature.
The mountains are very sacred to us. You can feel the power, the spiritual power in there.
A very special series, Scenic Wonders.
Our struggle for independence.
It's going to be a good day to fight a battle. All right, boys. Remember the Alamo!
Based on the story of Sam Houston, Sam Elliott stars in Gone to Texas.
Our desire for justice.
It's like there's something inside of me that wants to change things. Fix things.
She fought for equal rights in a segregated world. Mary White. In March, the Disney Channel salutes the American legacy. Next month, the Sunday Night Showcase presents James, Judy, Stan, Ollie, and some very special friends. Take a rare look at a private man.
It's very funny to be me.
When this gifted artist plays both old classics and new tunes from his most recent album. It's an exclusive musical portrait, James Taylor, Going Home. The legendary Judy Garland performs some of the most beloved songs ever written in an exclusive special. Judy Garland in concert, music from the movies. They say opposites attract, or in some cases attack. Whatever the case, these two comedy legends belong together. Celebrate their genius in Laurel and Hardy, a tribute to the boys. And learn why some animals act more like people than you'd expect in the fascinating documentary, Primates, the Almost Human Animals. There's a wide variety of great programming on the Sunday Night Showcase.
Will Rogers was an Oklahoma cowboy who became America's greatest humorist when he combined Cracker Barrel philosophy with razor-sharp wit. Although he started out as a rope artist, he later developed many other interests, such as polo, and was an avid believer in the future of commercial aviation. He was the first civilian passenger to fly on airmail routes and traveled with many aviation pioneers. Despite his many interests, he remained at heart a family man who earned his living as a movie star in both the silents and the talkies. But his love of aviation led to his early death on a tragic flight in 1935, and America lost a favorite son. The nation mourned a man who for 25 years dominated the stage, screen, radio, and journalism with his humor.
Here tonight, Governor, you are not allowed to refer to politics. Now, this introduction hasn't been very learned or very flowery, but remember, you're only a candidate. As a president, I'll do right by you. And because I'm certainly wasting no oratory on a prospect.
William Penn Adair Rogers is born in 1879, the son of a wealthy ranch owner with whom he'll never see eye to eye. Rogers is a disruptive adolescent who loves center stage. When he joins a Wild West show in his 20s, he uses his skill with a lariat as a stepping stone to success and becomes a popular cowboy act on the rodeo circuit. For the first time, he discovers that show business is an outlet for his distinctive personality. Rogers' superb mastery of rope tricks, shown here in a movie he financed himself to preserve his skills on celluloid, is something Will has been perfecting since he started to walk. Originally taught to twirl a lariat by one of his father's ranch hands, Rogers practices throughout his childhood. It's a skill he continues to perform for relaxation for the rest of his life. Some of the things Rogers can do with a rope seem almost impossible, like the figure eight, in which a spinning loop twists in midair, half landing on the cowboy and half on the horse. No wonder Rogers is generally known as the world's greatest rope artist. After a coast-to-coast tour in vaudeville, Rogers is signed by Broadway producer Florence Ziegfeld, who casts him in the 1915 Ziegfeld Follies, and he delights audiences with his down-to-earth humor. Ziegfeld, seen here on the right, has designed the Follies to glorify the American girl, but Rogers becomes his biggest attraction. The gum-chewing cowboy is a hit with sophisticated audiences. Setting the trend for Follies stars of the future, Rogers leaves New York in 1918 to pursue a career in Hollywood. But after 3 years of making features for Sam Goldwyn, in which he portrays characters resembling his good-natured self, he switches to short subjects, like this spoof entitled Uncensored Movies, which pokes fun at some of his friends, who are Hollywood's biggest stars. In this Western takeoff, he parodies cowboy hero Tom Mix, who at $17,000 a week is the movie's highest-paid actor, and makes fun of his famous white hat that never falls off. Rogers likes to lampoon the biggest stars, and after Rudolph Valentino appears in Blood and Sand, Rogers takes to the bull ring in his own version, called Big Moments from Little Pictures. By this time, Valentino has become an international sex symbol, and Rogers is amused with the mystique that surrounds the great lover. Hardly a heartthrob himself, Rogers plays the role of a matador to a lot of bull. But because of his good-natured sense of humor, no one really takes offense, especially Valentino. Rogers not only takes aim at the star, but at the movie itself, recreating scenes directly from the original with a definite comic slant, right down to the reward showered upon the victor. But even Valentino comes off better than the bull, who gets a most ignominious send-up. While Rogers' version of Blood and Sand does little to hurt Valentino's career, it does less to help his own. In Will's own words, the average life of a movie is till it reaches the critics, and as far as his star spoofs, he was right. Even with a time-consuming show business career, Will is devoted to his wife Betty and their 3 children. Largely an absent parent, he still finds time to share his love of ranching with his sons Will Jr. and Jimmy. In the mid-1920s, Rogers begins a new career as a public speaker. After a disastrous investment from producing his own movies wipes out all his personal assets and leaves him in debt, he's forced to tour the country speaking to raise money. His off-the-cuff performances are so successful that he earns up to $12,000 a week traveling from city to city. He also accepts offers to write for newspapers, give radio speeches, and even present after-dinner talks. Wherever Will goes, he enjoys meeting people and shaking hands. As he often said, "I never met a man I didn't like." But that didn't stop him from making fun of local politicians.
I was very fortunate. I missed part of the speeches. Somebody said, "Governor Ross, give me a treat." Did you give me a treat? I was, huh? Is that so? Will you put it in writing? And, so anyhow, I'd like to leave my tree here till lumber is worth more.
Although Rogers likes to make fun of politicians, he almost becomes one himself in 1926 when he's elected mayor of Beverly Hills. It's really a gimmick arranged by Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford to publicize the newly formed city. And Rogers, a resident, accepts with humor, quipping, They say I'll be a comedy mayor. Well, I won't be the only one. I never met a mayor yet that wasn't comical. Will is later relieved to discover his term as mayor will be short when a California state law prevents him from holding office. Off-screen, Rogers hobnobs with people from all walks of life, from king to commoner. But in his movies, he plays the average guy with average problems, like finding a parking space in Los Angeles. Some things never change. This everyman character is the way Will sees himself, and he never develops an oversized Hollywood ego. He has a basic understanding of human behavior and a natural respect for others. This quality always comes through in his movies and may be the reason why he's so well liked. After 4 years of writing occasional articles for magazines and newspapers, Will's hired to do a daily column. Will Rogers Says. The short but funny editorials, which are read by 40 million people across the nation, continue until his death. He scours the news for topical subjects, and to gather new insights for his column, Will takes a tour of Europe. Later, he makes a series of 10-minute travelogues for Pathé, like this one, showing the sights in Amsterdam. The self-made diplomat introduces Americans to the great cities of Europe and includes wisecracking title cards, since the movies are still silent. As part of his tour, Rogers visits Ireland and is warmly welcomed in Dublin because of his part Irish background and wry sense of humor. But as much as he enjoys the countries he visits over the years, there's still no place like home.
Mr. Hoover, now listen, don't let him knock Mr. Hoover too much. Just let him go see some of these other countries and come back. He looks good after you've been over there, brother. Landed in Cairo. Oh, landed in Cairo, yeah. But didn't see the Sphinx. I had already seen Mr. Coolidge. You had the South. You piloted a plane in China? Did you know I flew with a Chinese pilot? Now that's the last word in heroism. I know. I see that they called it off. Good moment. Hey, you're gonna get the hero. You got it up, bro. Let's go home. Oh boy, it's good to get home.
In his films, Will Rogers often makes fun of public figures. After a trip to Europe, he finds a new target for his humor: English royalty. In A Truthful Liar, a terrorist who is typical of European politics at the time becomes a comic focal point when he attempts to assassinate the King of England. The terrorist's Russian appearance is how the American public thinks anarchists look in the 1920s because of a communist scare. Although the movie is a satire on politics in America and in Europe, Will maintains the Western flavor with his own specialty: a horse chase and a lariat to the rescue. In an earlier movie, Rogers learned that fans were disappointed because he didn't use his roping skills. Deciding not to make this mistake again, he shows the public he's still handy with a rope. In A Truthful Liar, the king, who bears a striking resemblance to England's reigning monarch, Edward VII, loses his royal dignity, but Will is so warm and friendly, making him feel right at home in America, that he doesn't even mind. Drinking and passing the time together in a bar is consistent with Will's view that deep down, everyone's the same, whether prince or pauper. Although his silent comedies are only mildly successful, Will remains philosophical. They say you're not a success in Hollywood unless you owe $50,000, have 5 cars, and have been mixed up in 4 divorce cases. Well, in that case, I'm a rank failure. Rogers even pokes fun at the Queen, who's made to appear a stereotyped housewife. Despite the quality of his silent acting, Rogers' humor needs to be heard as well as seen. In the 1920s, during the reign of movie slapstick, audiences are more attuned to the wild antics of Charlie Chaplin and the Keystone Cops, and Rogers doesn't become a major movie star until the talkies. Not only kings, but presidents are targets for Will's ribbing.
Mr. Coolidge come into our lives at a peculiar time in our existence. He was, held about every other political job there was to hold, and there was a time about 2 or 3 years after the war, it was just a man we needed. He didn't do nothing, but that's what we wanted done.
Even if President Coolidge doesn't like Rogers' humor, most politicians do.
I haven't welcomed the governors. I want to welcome them too, because that's one thing we do in California is welcome. We'll welcome anything that'll come here. This is the wisest wisest state in the world. Here's a state got $110 million. Yeah, you know what I mean? On Hoover. Yeah, they grabbed it off even when, they grabbed it off when they thought the Republicans might get in, so the Republicans give them that much, and they got away with it. The Democrats had to make good that much, afraid they'd lose the states the next time.
Making fun of politicians is Roger's favorite public sport. But privately, Will prefers polo. He builds a polo field on his ranch in Pacific Palisades, and regular visitors there include Hollywood's elite. But with the Great Depression raging and millions of Americans unemployed, Will combines pleasure with charity to help raise money for the nation's poor. This fundraising is his way of dealing with the economic crisis. Although Rogers clowns for the camera, he understands the cause of nationwide unemployment and tries to help out.
Sent you a check for today's receipt for the Red Cross.
Well, that's mighty nice of you, Mr. Payne. Hey, I guess that's okay. It's certified. It's okay.
Oh, yes, it's good. It's good.
It wasn't the working class that brought this condition on at all. It was the big boys themselves who thought that this financial drunk we were going through was going to last forever. They over-merged and over-capitalized and over everything else. That's the fix that we're in now.
Rogers doesn't trust politicians, but during the 1932 presidential campaign, Rogers supports Governor Franklin Delano Roosevelt as president and introduces him at the Los Angeles Coliseum with the usual send-up.
We must have some 80 or 90,000 people here tonight. That's the most people that ever paid to see a politician. Here tonight, Governor, you are not allowed to refer to politics. They won't let anyone talk politics in here because this stadium was dedicated to art, sports, and any useful enterprises. We're here tonight, not as candidate Roosevelt, but just as neighbor Roosevelt from the other side of the Rocky Mountains. Now, this introduction hasn't been very, it hasn't been perhaps very learned or very flowery, but remember, you're only a candidate. As a president, I'll do right by you. And because I'm certainly wasting no oratory on a prospect.
In 1929, Rogers makes his first talking picture, and the public takes to his easygoing humor, making him the nation's #1 star at the box office. He appears in 21 audiobles, as he calls them, earning millions for himself and the Fox studio.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Tomorrow he's got to be like Mr. Samson, saving Daniel from the lion's den.
In Judge Priest, co-starring Hattie McDaniel, two great comedy talents make the movie a delight.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. The judge could do with a toddy right now. Yes, yes. Yes, you'll see. Soon as you get me some in. Oh, yeah.
His only real competition at the box office is Shirley Temple.
We gathered here today to unveil a picture of you here. Now, I'm not going to make a speech, because I'm so long-winded. I make speeches for everywhere for no reason whatever. And you are the biggest entertainer in the world today. And you have arrived at that position by not making speeches.
Rogers is 55. Temple is 6. And both prove that sex appeal isn't the only way to become a star in Hollywood. When Rogers tours the Orient and visits Japan in the mid-1930s, his remarks about the Japanese are amazingly accurate.
Well, Mr. Rogers, you're back again in Japan. You must like this country.
I do. I had a good time here. We was here about 2 years ago. You remember the last time I was here with Floyd Gibbons, and you had a war on then, you know. I'm glad to get back here in peace and everything. And Mr. Roosevelt told me when I come over here, he says, "Now, Will, don't you go over there and jump on Japan. You just keep them from jumping on us."
Are you on one of these goodwill tours?
Now listen, boys, I ain't on any goodwill tour. That's what's the matter with our country now, sending so many people around with goodwill. I bring you no goodwill at all. I'm not here for that.
I see. What do you think of our new golf course?
Oh, I saw that, yeah. Well, that's the beginning of the end now. You're going in for golf, so it won't be long now till you'll be right where we are in the business supremacy of the world if you start playing golf. You know, that'll be the end of it. That's what happened to us.
Rogers never overcomes his love of travel. And in 1935, when Wiley Post scouts airmail routes between the U.S. and Asia, Will joins him in what will prove to be their last flight. Post, a record-setting and fearless pilot, plans the transcontinental trip with a stopover in Alaska. Rogers is given his first chance to see the isolated region and is impressed with its stark beauty. Will also feels that lending his name to flight will increase public acceptance of commercial aviation. On August 15, 1935, Rogers and Post take off from Fairbanks, Alaska, for their next refueling stop. But they never reach their destination. No one knows exactly why, but a few miles from Barrow, Alaska, they run out of fuel and crash in shallow water. The tragic news makes headlines around the world, and a shocked nation pays tribute to its most beloved and famous citizen. On August 17th, the day of Will's funeral, 150,000 people file by his coffin in quiet respect. And Hollywood mourns by shutting down their theaters and studios. Both CBS and NBC radio networks observe a half hour of silence. Rogers is gone, but his memory is not forgotten. A statue is unveiled in Washington, which will stand alongside history's great statesmen. President Roosevelt, a close friend for many years, says he knew how to revive the spirit of laughter in hearts that had known much of the distractions of a busy world. But the most lasting tribute is made when Hollywood sets up a yearly memorial fundraiser, introduced to audiences by actor Paul Muni.
Ladies and gentlemen, Will Rogers, as we knew him, and as you knew him, was a plain American. He typified the best qualities of America. Staunch in his loyalties, warm in his sympathy, always ready to give himself to help in the everlasting campaign against human misery and suffering. In simple tribute to him, there has been dedicated a hospital at Saranac Lake, New York, known as the Will Rogers Memorial Hospital. I'm sure there are many of you who would like to join with the motion picture industry in this work. So I'm going to ask the ushers to pass among you. The contributions you make will serve a double purpose. They will help the Will Rogers Memorial Hospital and will aid other institutions throughout the country. We want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for Will Rogers.
The Will Rogers Memorial Fund, which continues to this day, is a constant reminder of Rogers' lifelong dedication to charity. Today, Will Rogers Ranch in Pacific Palisades is a California state park where over 500,000 tourists visit his home every year. Located just off Sunset Boulevard, the park attracts those who remember Will Rogers and those who aren't old enough to recall America's greatest humorist. The house that Jokes built, as Rogers called his home, stands exactly as it was when Will lived here. Inside are his collections of Old West paintings, Indian relics, lariats, and mementos, including all of his trophies. Of the many pieces on display, this one best captures Rogers' three loves: movies, aviation, and polo, a game he learned to play when he and his family first arrived in Hollywood. Team matches are still played every Sunday and continue to draw crowds as they did in the golden days of Hollywood. Will's late wife, Betty, always felt that Rogers would have wanted the public to visit his ranch, and now they do. Another major attraction of the park is Will's elaborate stable, which is still in use. Here, where he housed his favorite polo ponies, Rogers' love of horses is kept alive. He once said, "A man who doesn't love horses, there's something wrong with him." The Will Rogers State Park will always remind the public of the cowboy philosopher who left behind a wealth of wit and humor.
Now that the applesauce and bologna is all over, and we will try and state a few facts about this affair. That's a wonderful figure of the boy. That's the cleanest face I ever saw in an Oklahoma boy. That woman's got on a corset, you know, and we haven't seen one in years, but she's got one on. I've been to parties, I've been to affairs with the old-time woman when she, you know, at dinner parties when she couldn't see out over them, you know, looking out like that. got on an old-time, you know, that's one. We got on an old-time course, you know. The first 10 years of my married life I spent, how did we all spend it? Any of us old-timers, we spend it standing behind our wife, doing this.
Next, Gene Simmons and Anthony Hopkins star in the second installment of the original Disney Channel miniseries, Great Expectations. A team of Navy commandos is missing.
A rescue attempt is simply not justifiable.
When the government wouldn't help, their kids became their only hope.
Look, maybe they've written my father off, but I haven't. But you mean we go get him?
They're against all odds. But they won't give up.
We go all the way, the plan, the commitment, all of it.
Kevin Dillon and Mark Price star in an adventure they'll never forget. The Rescue. The Sunday Night Showcase presents comedy legend, Mr. Bob Hope. Bob shares Hollywood secrets.
I've kissed a lot of girls. Trigger's the only one that kissed back.
Declines public office.
The money's not good, honey. And besides, my wife wouldn't want to move to a smaller house, you know.
And more in a conversation with Bob Hope.
When people think of having a good time at Walt Disney World, these are the images that usually come to mind. But you're about to see places of excitement and entertainment here that you might never have known existed. And that's no fish story. We asked Travis Tanner to tell us about some of them.
Our Walt Disney World resorts are uniquely themed overnight experiences, not unlike the experience that someone would have in our Magic Kingdom or Epcot Center or our studio theme park. They're really an extension of those.
These select Walt Disney World resorts are divided into three groups: the Magic Kingdom resorts, the Epcot Center resorts, and the Disney Village resorts. In the northern portion of the property are the Magic Kingdom resorts, most of which are linked by the monorail system. In fact, Disney's contemporary resort hotel has the monorail come right into the lobby. How's that for convenience? And the view's nice too. The newly remodeled Contemporary features a fine array of restaurants and shops within the Grand Canyon Concourse. A short boat ride across Bay Lake takes us to Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort and Campground.
Our Fort Wilderness Resort is probably the most relaxed resort environment on our property. It features tremendous outdoor activities in a relaxed environment, including horseback riding, canoeing, anything you would really want to do outside.
If you're the type that likes the great outdoors with all the comforts of home, check out the fully stocked trailer homes for rent. For fun, there's a petting farm, a beautiful white sand beach, and nearby is river country for a splashin' good time with swings and slides. The next monorail stop brings us to Disney's Polynesian Resort, the tranquil garden paradise where right in the middle of the lobby you'll find a waterfall.
Our Polynesian Resort offers a Polynesian flavor in the middle of Central Florida. We offer everything from a luau to water sports.
Up the beach from the Polynesian is the newest Magic Kingdom resort, the elegant Grand Floridian Beach Resort. Modeled after the Victorian hotels of the turn of the century, the Grand Floridian recalls bygone days of luxury combined with the comforts of today.
Our Grand Floridian Resort can be described best, I think, by simply saying it's the best of what Disney has to offer. It is truly our five-star resort with five-star service.
Not far from the Grand Floridian is perhaps the best-kept secret of all the Walt Disney resorts, the charming Disney Inn. Nestled between two PGA Championship golf courses, the Disney Inn is a quiet retreat that's still close to the action. There are two pools to provide aquatic relaxation. Or head on down to the pro shop for personal golf lessons from one of the resident pros. Or a challenging day on the links, where even the sand traps are a little less threatening. From here, it's a short drive, well, maybe a chip shot, to the Epcot Center resorts, which include a nautical pair, Disney's Beach Club Resort and Disney's Yacht Club Resort.
The Yacht Club and Beach Club resorts are located next to each other, but each has its own unique theming.
Reflecting all the charm of a classic New England inn, the Yacht Club Resort has its own private harbor where a variety of crafts stand ready for adventure. Stormalong Bay is a fantasy lagoon with whirlpools and eddies that winds around the front of the hotel and links the yacht club with its sister resort, Disney's Beach Club Resort. Here, a more casual atmosphere prevails. Kids love exploring the Beach Club's specially constructed shipwreck with its 2 sensational water slides. And both kids and parents will enjoy the Beach Club's warm feeling of fun. Nearby, Disney's Caribbean Beach Resort brings the exotic flavor of the islands at an affordable price.
The Caribbean Beach Resort is uniquely themed to the islands of the Caribbean at a price that almost any family can afford.
The vibrant pastels of the 5 island villages invite guests to relax after a fun-filled day's activity. On the eastern edge of Walt Disney World are the Disney Village Resorts, which offer a variety of accommodations. Disney's Port Orleans Resort captures the essence of the French Quarter. Stroll around the grounds and you'll see the Cajun and Creole lifestyle reflected on every corner. The feeling of Mardi Gras even extends to the pool area, where young and old alike can frolic with fanciful characters.
Disney's Village Resort is a unique collection of villas, townhomes, and even tree houses for our guests that will accommodate a family of up to 8 people.
And the newest addition to the Village Resorts is Disney's Dixie Landings Resort, where guests enjoy the carefree life on the Mississippi in either a stately plantation home or more humble bayou dwelling. So, no matter which resort you choose at Walt Disney World,
we like to say once you get here, you park your car. You never have to worry about a thing. Just enjoy the Disney magic.
The following presentation has been closed captioned for the hearing impaired. Previously on Great Expectations.
Hold your noise.
A young orphan boy accidentally discovered escaped convict Abel Magwitch.
What's your name?
Pizza!
And this unusual relationship would change Pip's life forever.
Brought no one?
No, sir.
I believe you.
A few days later,
Bring him off!
Magwitch's arrest proved to be a curious yet heartfelt loss to Pip.
Step nearer.
The reclusive Miss Havisham introduced him to a world of wealth and anger.
He's a common neighboring boy. You can break his heart.
10 years pass, and Pip makes the passage from boyhood to manhood.
Am I to come again?
No.
Having tasted the good life, Pip would challenge his destiny.
I want to be a gentleman.
Don't you think you'd be happier staying as you are?
And good fortune would place Pip's dream within his grasp.
If you are to become a gentleman, the sooner you leave here, the better.
Now, Great Expectations continues.
Some 60 million years, nature's wild dogs have roamed the land surface of the earth. The largest and most powerful living member of the tribe in our hemisphere is the wolf. Long regarded as a sort of patriarch of all dogs, wild and domestic, he is a social animal who hunts in packs. One of his closest relatives in the wilderness is the red fox, famed in song and story for his wit and cunning. Foxes come in many colors, but they're all brothers under the skin. One such variety is the gray fox, who, among his many talents, has developed the knack of climbing trees, both in pursuit of his prey as well as for defensive purposes. Among foxes, perhaps the most astonishing variety is the Arctic fox, whose snowy coat is a perfect adaptation to his environment in the frozen north. But the best known of all of nature's wild dogs is the coyote, so named by the ancient Aztecs of Mexico. Early explorers moving westward reported encountering the little prairie wolf from the Mississippi to the Pacific, from central Mexico all the way up into Canada. In those days, the laughing philosopher of the plains, which is another of his many names, could roam at will, with nature providing in plenty for all, and all wildlife helping to maintain the balance of nature. But then, man moved into the wide open spaces and began filling them in with settlements and cities. Soon, these were all linked together by roads and highways and turnpikes. All the areas in between were cut up by the steel tracks of the railroads. And yet, such is the coyote's incredible adaptability that today he has not only survived in considerable number, but has even managed to spread out within the leftover spaces, from Central America to Alaska, from the Pacific almost to the eastern seaboard. Indeed, this keen-witted member of nature's wild dog family has learned to live in close proximity to his greatest enemy, man, and man's monstrous machines, which seem to pursue him in many terrifying shapes and forms. Yet, despite everything, the song of the little prairie tenor rings defiantly across man's proud habitations. His famous howl, in fact, is one of the primary characteristics that distinguishes the coyote from most of nature's other wild dogs. It's his way to communicate, send a warning signal, call for assistance, or to express his joy at just being alive. And being alive, the sheer question of survival is indeed the major problem of all creatures of the earth. Its solution is based on one of the most compulsive of all survival instincts, the urge to reproduce one's species, the need for a mate. Depending on the geography and climate of their habitat, the coyote's mating season is from January to March of the year. And the first duty of the new mates is to locate an appropriate home for the family that is to come some 63 days later. Their dens differ with the nature of the living area. Coyotes may inhabit a cave in a hillside, occupy a hollow log, move into a cleft among the rocks, a pit amidst the roots of a tree, or merely a hole in the ground. Like his cousin, the fox, the coyote shrewdly provides for several emergency exits, plus a vent on top for fresh air. It is here where a litter of from 2 to 6 pups is born and nursed by the mother, while father must remain outside to hunt for food. Weeks later, the wobbly youngsters emerge into the sunlight. At once they exhibit the playfulness of domestic puppies, wrestling, cavorting, growling, but always under the close supervision of their parents nearby. By now, they have been introduced to their father, who takes them on short excursions. A brook not only quenches thirst, it's also an important source of food. A coyote's cast iron stomach can digest almost anything, and a body of water can supply many meals, from tadpoles to frogs to crawfish to trout. As the puppy grows in size, he grows in wisdom. And one thing he learns is that anthills are things one had better not stir up. On his short forays in the neighboring terrain, he absorbs the nature of his universe, the sights, sounds, smells, and he slowly learns to differentiate between friend and foe. In fact, he soon finds out that there are few other animals that will think of him as anything but a nuisance now and a menace later on, and rightly so. Because it's no secret among other species of the wild that the time isn't too far off when this playful little puppy will become a very hungry prairie wolf who will try to make a meal out of a former playmate. No wonder that a neighbor, such as this badger, will tell him in no uncertain terms to keep his distance. Among the foes a young coyote soon learns to respect are such sharp-clawed aerial hunters as the golden eagle, to whom a fat coyote pup is always welcome prey. That is, if he can manage to catch one. And so, protected by their parents, always close by the safe shelter of their den, the pups keep maturing. Coyote families display a deep sense of affection and togetherness for one another. But the frisky playfulness of the pups and the complete permissiveness of the parents conceal a more serious purpose. Tugging and wrestling strengthens muscles. They learn to strike, duck, dodge, trick one another in evasion and attack. Because soon the time is coming when the young must absorb the wisdom and experience of their elders to cope with the many problems of adult life. That's why basic training always begins with a course in tracking and hunting. Learning to tell one's own tracks from those of potential game animals is lesson number 1. Father then demonstrates the methods of flushing a rabbit and hunting it down. Of course, flushing your game is one thing, catching it another, as is shown by the fact that even father may return empty-handed, in which case dinner is in the bag only if someone else in the family has had better luck. A more serious lesson of the hunt is that the hunter may become the hunted. That's when the cunning of the coyote must come to the rescue. The problem here is to trick the bobcat into switching the chase to the more experienced parent, a dangerous game that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. A couple more months and the average teenage coyote is ready to try hunting all by himself. Wisely, he will stick to small game at first, such as a field mouse, which is the type of game readily available in almost all areas where coyotes live. The young coyote may display quite a bit of ingenuity in attempting to trap his prey. But all creatures of the wild have ways of protecting themselves, especially when facing a relatively inexperienced adversary as this one. In regions that contain lakes and ponds, wild ducks and geese may seem rather inviting to a young coyote with a nagging appetite. But just as success can be a fine teacher, so can failure. And next time, he'll perhaps know how to make a more subtle tactical approach to his quarry. If the coyote lives in prairie or desert country, the young hunter must acquire the special techniques of smelling out and bringing to heel such plucky little creatures as the prairie dog, who will stand up to anybody when it comes to defending his skin. Often the incredible courage of the intended victim turns out to be too much even for the most persistent hunter. In his constant search for food, the coyote commits all manner of mischief. In fact, fact, he learns to become an expert at petty thievery. However, his crimes weigh much heavier on the debit side of man's economy when he invades the premises of farmers and ranchers. Here, the depredations of coyote packs run into enormous dollar losses every year and hardly serve to endear him to the rancher. Perhaps he most deserves to be called pest and varmint when he imitates the activities of his big brother, the gray wolf, and dares to harass the valuable flocks of sheepmen. What makes the coyote an even bigger worry to many a rancher and farmer is that he sometimes learns to recognize all sorts of traps set out for him. He not only figures out how to avoid them, but how to spring them. This astonishing cleverness, of course, only brings out man's determination to hunt him down in any way human ingenuity can devise. Sometimes packs of domestic dogs are trained to pursue nature's wild dogs. But while the little prairie wolf may be destructive in many ways, let's not forget that he also has many qualities that put him squarely on the credit side of man's ledger, too. Among these are his fearless assaults on the rattlesnake population, a deadly game at which many a coyote has lost his life, but which helps balance his value in the eyes of naturalists and cattlemen. Another place where the coyote's activities are counted by man as being in his favor is in agriculture, and especially the alfalfa fields, which are often ravaged by hordes of jackrabbits. Here the coyote earns whatever respect and gratitude he'll ever get from humans by controlling the population explosion among these pesky destroyers of crops. Here he also has a chance to display some of the brilliant hunting techniques he's developed since puppyhood, by maneuvering his prey into the corner of the rabbit fence from which there is no escape. And so, as he grows and matures into young adulthood, acquiring experiences that teach him how to survive, he reaches the point when he must leave family and pack behind and strike out on his own. True, Food is always in short supply, and he must find living and hunting space that he can claim as his own. This may take him as far as 100 miles away from his place of birth. But first, he must also find a mate, for the cycle of life must continue. Coyotes mate for life, and the ritual of courtship performed by young coyotes is often touching and full of charm. Now is the time for obeying the age-old impulse and raise a chorus of voices to the sky. This strange and eerie community sing is the way in which nature's wild dog expresses his sheer joy at just being alive, the way he celebrates the eternal turning of the great wheel of life.
On the final chapter of Great Expectations,
I feel I'm being watched at every step.
Magwitch's past becomes his adversary.
If they catch me here, it's the rope for certain.
Driven by fear, they make plans for a better world.
What do you think, Mr. Magwitch? I'll wait content, knowing that you and me will make the run together.
Leaving his dream behind, Pip risks it all in a daring run for freedom.
Row, Albert, row!
Don't miss the exciting conclusion of Great Expectations. Next, relive classic Disney television moments on the Best of Walt Disney Presents. Tune in to the Disney Channel.
I can dance.
Check out the making of the latest hit album from the legendary musical trio Genesis, Phil Collins, Tony Banks, and Mike Rutherford.
When we started, it was all a bit of a game. It was a laugh, you know. The idea you can make a living out of doing this never occurred to you.
Together, they've created great music for over 20 years. Take an exclusive look at how they work and play together.
When we're writing the music, you have to be around people you know, and for, over a period of years, you learn to free your mind a bit and improvise without even thinking about it.
And take a ride with them down memory lane.
Back in the mid-70s or something, I think Mike and I tended to dominate the writing very much, that was how it was. And, nowadays there's very much split between the three of us.
Go where no fan has gone before. Genesis, no admittance, only on the Disney Channel. The Disney Channel is proud to present Meredith Salinger and John Cusack in the exclusive encore presentation of The Journey of Natty Gann.
Family is a menagerie.